You reached out to a witness, someone said to have been deep in multiple wild secret parties. Things are getting messy fast. What happens when one of hip-hop's biggest power players suddenly vanishes from the scene? After 50 Cent dropped that explosive documentary, along with leaked private convos allegedly involving Diddy, the whole game froze. Now every eye is locked on Jay-Z, and his sudden silence is setting off alarm bells everywhere. Is he laying low on purpose, doing damage control, or is there something way deeper going on behind the scenes?
Ain't never been no 50 Cent Jay-Z conversations.
People can't stop talking, and whispers are turning into full-on chatter. 50 Cent's documentary didn't just cause a stir, it kicked open doors everyone thought were sealed for good. Overnight, old rumors came crawling back, and brand new questions started blowing up across social media and hip-hop circles. As the spotlight shifted to Jay-Z, one detail had everyone talking: his total silence. While Diddy's name flooded the headlines and timelines with wild claims, Jay-Z said absolutely nothing. And to many people watching, that silence sounded louder than any public statement he could have made. Something's not adding up, and fans can feel it. This whole thing isn't just about one documentary or one headline, it's a tangled web built over years. The industry's been whispering for a long time, and now those whispers are turning into full-on conversations. We're talking about leaked messages, old rumors, and insider stories from people who were once tight with Diddy, like Gene Deal, and even public figures now trying to keep their distance. This situation feels way bigger than just another trending topic. It's shaking up the entire scene. And let's be real, it's making people ask the kind of questions that fans have avoided for years. Is this all just the past catching up? Or are we watching the start of something way bigger and darker than anyone expected? Reports are saying Jay-Z is under serious pressure right now after claims popped up about leaked private messages between him and Diddy, allegedly dropped by 50 Cent himself. These leaks didn't just appear out of thin air either. For years, Jay-Z's name has been quietly floating around conversations tied to Diddy's alleged shady behavior.
There's a huge difference in energy internationally in 50 Cent and Jay-Z.
But every time, it got brushed off like it was nothing. Now, with these supposed messages out in the open, all those buried accusations are coming back to life, and people aren't looking away anymore. Some insiders are hinting that this moment is different, that the heat's rising because the leaks suggest Jay-Z might have known way more than he ever let on. There's even talk that he could have helped cover things up or been directly tied to certain situations himself. Things are getting tense and fast. There's still so much that hasn't fully come to light yet, but insiders say the tension right now feels different. The pressure in the industry is heavy. Like everyone knows this situation won't just fade away quietly this time. Something's building and people can feel it. Meanwhile, 50 Cent has made his stance crystal clear. In several interviews, he's kept it real. He was never part of Diddy's inner circle and made sure to stay far from that world. He's even said that back in the day, there were parties and situations that made him straight up uncomfortable, and instead of ignoring the signs, he decided to walk away. According to him, that distance is exactly why he can speak on everything now without hesitation. When the allegations finally exploded online, 50 said he found out the same way everyone else did, through the media, and none of it surprised him one bit. He sounded almost like he'd been expecting it. Then, the story took an even darker twist. Jaguar Wright came forward and dropped a bombshell, claiming that Jay-Z was actually worse than Diddy. She said he'd done far more extreme things to women and that she had scars to prove it. Her claims were intense. She even accused Jay-Z of attacking her in the past and allegedly recording it, echoing the same kind of accusations that have been floating around about Diddy. According to her, this is the real reason Jay-Z has been slowly backing away from the spotlight and why he's not seen publicly with Diddy anymore. The streets are buzzing and everyone's wondering what might come out next. For a while now, people have been whispering that Jay-Z's been quietly pulling back, trying to keep his distance before the fallout gets too close. Some even say 50 Cent hinted that Jay's just laying low, waiting for Diddy's storm to blow over before stepping back into the spotlight. It's like he's playing the long game, silent, but calculated. But there's more. Unresolved claims are still floating around, connecting Jay-Z to the tragic death of Kathy White. Accusations that never completely disappeared, no matter how quiet they got. Even when the noise faded, the rumors never really died down. They just waited for the right moment to resurface. Now, it feels like all the puzzle pieces are finally starting to line up. Old interviews, old clips, and wild statements are popping up all over the internet again. And people are doing what they do best, digging deep and connecting every single dot. The conversation's getting louder by the day, and it's spreading fast. Right now, the real question isn't just if these allegations will stick, but how long Jay-Z can keep up this silence while every eye in the industry starts locking on him. The pressure's building, and it's only getting harder to stay quiet. This is where things start getting real uncomfortable, because once that spotlight moves, it almost never shifts back. At first, all eyes were locked on Diddy, but as the investigation kept expanding, that spotlight slowly started sliding towards someone else, Jay-Z, and that's when things really got messy. What grabbed everyone's attention wasn't a big statement or some kind of denial, it was the complete silence. While chaos surrounded Diddy, Jay-Z stayed totally quiet. And for a lot of people, that silence spoke volumes. It didn't sit right, and soon the questions started flooding in. Why stay quiet? Why not clear things up before the rumors exploded? Some folks think Jay-Z's team already knew his name had been mentioned in civil cases, so they decided it was smarter to stay silent and not stir the fire. Others believe it was already too late, that once public opinion turns, there's no stopping it, even without formal charges. Once people start forming their own stories online, there's no controlling the narrative anymore. And social media, it made everything 10 times worse. Old clips started popping up again, wild rumors spread faster than facts, and new allegations began catching serious attention. Suddenly, people were talking like Jay-Z had a pattern of silencing others, and those claims started blowing up across every platform. Proven or not, the talk kept spreading like wildfire, and it's clear. This story's far from over. This is the part where things take a chilling turn, because once that spotlight moves, it almost never comes back. When the investigation around Diddy started blowing up, the attention didn't stay on him for long. Slowly but surely, that same light started shifting toward Jay-Z, and suddenly everyone wanted answers. What really grabbed people wasn't a statement or denial, it was his total silence. While Diddy's name was exploding across headlines, Jay-Z said nothing. For a lot of folks, that silence didn't feel like peace. It felt like something was being hidden. Questions came flying in. Why stay quiet? Why not clear the air before things spiral? Some believe Jay-Z's team already knew his name had popped up in past civil cases and decided to get ahead by keeping quiet. Others think the damage was already happening, with or without proof, because once the public forms an opinion, it's almost impossible to take that power back. And of course, social media made everything worse. Old clips got dragged back up, new rumors started spreading like wildfire, and people began claiming Jay-Z had a history of silencing those who spoke out. True or not, the talk was everywhere, and the noise was too loud to ignore. That constant buzz kept his name trending, and not in a good way. That's when an old accuser story came back into focus. She reminded everyone that even though she dropped her lawsuit against Jay-Z, she never changed her story. According to her, she didn't walk away because she lied. She said she did it out of fear. She claimed she'd been harassed, overwhelmed, and genuinely scared of Jay-Z and the influence he carried. She even said she was pressured to publicly deny her own accusations, but she refused to do it. In newly surfaced legal documents, she described a moment that left her completely shaken, saying that two individuals approached her outside her home, claiming they were investigators working for one of Jay-Z's lawyers. According to her, they tried to convince her to sign papers saying her allegations were false, but she stood her ground and refused. Still, she admitted the encounter left her terrified and confused. She also claimed that those same investigators started asking questions about her attorney, Tony Busby, wanting to know if he had reached out to her first or offered her money to create false claims against Jay-Z. She flat out denied those accusations, insisting that everything she said was real. What scared her the most, she claimed, was how easily those people managed to find her, right at her own home. The whole situation painted a dark picture of intimidation and silence, and it left fans wondering just how deep this story really goes. At that time, the woman's identity was completely anonymous, hidden in both media reports and official court filings, which made what happened next even more disturbing. She claimed that after those so-called investigators showed up at her home, things escalated fast. According to her, the same people even approached her parents, asking them personal questions about her story and about her lawyer. That's when she said everything became too real and too dangerous. In the legal documents, she explained that all those encounters pushed her to drop the case entirely. She said she was terrified of being exposed to the public and targeted by online harassment from Jay-Z's supporters. In her own words, the pressure became too much. She described feeling trapped, like no matter what she did, she couldn't win. The fear, the stress, and the constant pressure were too heavy to carry alone. Meanwhile, people inside the industry started warning that it only takes one criminal investigation to flip everything upside down, not just for Diddy, but for everyone who's ever been tied to him. That's why so many are calling 50 Cent's documentary a major turning point. For them, this isn't just about one celebrity being exposed. It's about peeling back years of hidden power moves, backroom secrets, and people who might have known way more than they ever admitted. Commentators are also asking one big question: how did Diddy stay protected for so long? Many believe he built a powerful shield around himself, surrounding his empire with influential friends, lawyers, and gatekeepers who controlled the narrative and kept information locked down tight. That's why every new detail now feels like a crack in a wall that's been sealed for years, and those cracks are spreading fast. Now the streets are buzzing again. Rumors are flying that Diddy might actually be working with the authorities to lighten the heat on himself. And if that's true, everyone's asking the same thing. What kind of information could he be sharing, and could Jay-Z's name end up in the mix? Things are starting to sound real serious, and people can feel the tension rising. This is where it all starts to hit hard, because once someone starts talking, there's no way to stop the chain reaction. Every whisper turns into another headline, and the truth, or even just pieces of it, can flip the whole game upside down. With 50 Cent's documentary now fully out, one thing's clear: this story isn't stuck in the past anymore. It's evolving. What's happening now feels like the start of something way bigger, something that's pulling the spotlight toward everyone who stayed silent all these years, and right in the middle of it all stands Jay-Z. His long, complicated history with Diddy can't just be brushed off, no matter how much people try to play it down. The world's watching closely, and the silence is getting louder by the day. When Jay-Z's lawyer came out saying that Jay-Z and Diddy were never really close, a lot of people didn't buy it. That explanation just didn't sit right, especially with Gene Deal, who had seen things up close for years. From his perspective, that version of the story didn't line up with what he personally witnessed behind the scenes. Gene didn't hold back. He said the bond between Jay-Z and Diddy was far from distant or casual. It wasn't some surface-level industry friendship. It was real, familiar, and out in the open for everyone to see. He talked about moments on stage where Diddy would get comfortable around Jay-Z in front of huge crowds, something that doesn't happen unless there's genuine trust between two powerful men. Gene even reminded people of the time Diddy publicly said Jay-Z was the only one allowed to call him by his real name, a statement that felt way too personal to be random. To Gene, that was proof of how deep their connection really ran, and he made it clear. None of those moments were accidents or coincidences. Every move, every word, every public gesture carried meaning. According to Gene, that closeness went way beyond what fans saw on stage or online. Their relationship stretched into private spaces, private jokes, mutual friends, and shared circles that kept them tied together for years. The picture he painted wasn't one of two distant moguls, it was of two men who knew exactly what each other was about. Gene described the bond between Jay-Z and Diddy as the kind of closeness you can't fake, the kind that comes from spending real time together. In his eyes, trying to act like that connection never existed just doesn't make sense. The energy, the chemistry, the familiarity, it all pointed to something genuine, not staged for the cameras. He even brought up specific moments that later caught the public's eye, like that big stage appearance in Atlanta, where Diddy joined Jay-Z in front of a packed crowd. Gene said the comfort between them was undeniable. You could feel it. He pointed out that even 50 Cent later mentioned that exact same clip, which sent it spiraling all over social media again. To Gene, that wasn't random. It was proof that plenty of people saw the same unspoken connection playing out right in front of everyone. When people asked if Gene's criticism came from dislike or jealousy, he shut that down quick. He said it had nothing to do with being a fan or a hater. It was just about calling things the way he saw them. He explained that his perspective came from experience, from watching how these top-tier power players move. According to Gene, that's how people at the top often operate. They walk through situations, leave an impact, and then act like none of it ever happened. They keep moving forward, untouched, because they live in a completely different world. And honestly, that part hits deep. It forces everyone to ask a bigger question. What happens when powerful people start rewriting history right in front of us and the world just lets it slide? So who really gets to question that narrative? From Gene's point of view, the whole effort to downplay Jay-Z and Diddy's connection doesn't sound like setting the record straight. It feels more like straight-up damage control. Once people start digging up old footage, past interviews, and public statements, it's almost impossible to convince anyone that there was never a real bond there. The receipts are already out in the open. That's where things start feeling uneasy and why so many eyes are glued to this story right now. Gene said the kind of familiarity he saw between Jay-Z and Diddy already spoke louder than any denial ever could. It was obvious to anyone paying attention. He went even deeper, saying that people in powerful positions often move through life creating situations without fully realizing the impact. Back then, they might have brushed things off or thought it was just how things worked. But when those same people grow older, start families, and raise kids of their own, their mindset changes completely. Gene suggested that once someone imagines their own child in the same type of situations they used to ignore, reality hits different. Suddenly, what once seemed normal or easy to overlook starts to feel wrong, painfully wrong. He even mentioned that back in the day, a lot of people around Jay-Z didn't fully realize how much older he actually was compared to the company he kept. That detail, Gene hinted, might change how people look at certain past situations now, and it's making this whole story even harder to ignore. According to Gene, what people saw back then was deceiving. Jay-Z carried himself in a way that made him blend right in. He didn't look much older, didn't have facial hair at the time, and moved through crowds like he was just one of them. So when younger women were around, most people assumed everyone there was around the same age. Nobody questioned it back then. It all looked normal on the surface. But Gene said that once people later found out Jay-Z had actually been in his 30s during some of those moments, everything hit different. That detail, he explained, changed the entire picture. He didn't sugarcoat it either. Gene called it what it was, saying that a grown man in his 30s getting involved with anyone underage crosses a serious line. In his words, that's a real problem. Plain and simple. Now, with Jay-Z being a father himself and raising young daughters, Gene said he wonders if those past choices might weigh heavier on him today. Gene suggested that maybe now, with age and perspective, Jay-Z finally understands why those situations were never okay to begin with. He said the industry's been filled with that kind of behavior for decades. Things people saw, overheard, or quietly suspected but were too scared to speak on. It was all hidden behind fame, power, and money, and everyone just looked the other way. But now, everything's changing. With social media and platforms like YouTube giving people a voice, folks are finally sharing what they witnessed or went through firsthand. And that's making a lot of people in the industry very uncomfortable. Not because these stories are brand new, but because they're finally being spoken out loud for the world to hear. That's the part that really hits hard, because once the truth starts spreading online, it doesn't disappear. These stories live forever, replayed and reposted again and again. And for some of the most powerful names in the game, that kind of permanent exposure feels more dangerous than any headline or lawsuit ever could. Maybe now, with time and reflection, Jay-Z finally understands why those past situations were never okay in the first place. Gene said it straight. The industry's been filled with shady behavior for years. Stuff people saw, heard about, or quietly ignored, pretending it wasn't their business. It was all part of the culture, hidden behind fame, money, and power. Until now. These days, everything's out in the open. With YouTube, podcasts, and social platforms giving people the freedom to speak, more and more voices are coming forward with what they witnessed or experienced firsthand. And that's shaking the whole industry to its core. Not because the stories are new, but because they're finally being said out loud for the world to hear. That's what really hits. Because once the truth gets uploaded, shared, and replayed online, there's no deleting it. Those stories live forever. And for the most powerful figures in the game, that's the scariest part. The truth can't be buried once the internet grabs it. That's exactly why this moment feels different. This isn't just about one documentary or some leaked messages. It's about silence, power, and the people who've managed to stay untouched for years. But as insiders keep speaking out and old footage keeps resurfacing, the pressure around Jay-Z is only getting heavier. So what's really going on here? Is Jay-Z staying quiet to avoid the chaos, or is there something much bigger unfolding behind the scenes? What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if you're following the story. Share this with someone who needs to see it. And make sure you subscribe for more deep dives as this drama keeps unraveling.